Hello everybody, BK with Masada Tactical here again with another video, and today I want to talk about revolver, also known as wheel guns. I am personally a big fan, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I do think, and without sounding sexist, I do think that all men should own a 357 revolver. I think if you do not, you should probably turn in your man card, but that is just my personal opinion. Without getting into the action type, single action, double action only, and so forth, we're going to concentrate on the modern traditional revolver, which is for the most part a double action revolver with an exposed hammer, which means I can also fire it in a so we're gonna stick to this line or this type of revolvers today. I do think it is a valid self-defense. So first of all, they're simple, right? As far as operation and structure, it is one piece. The barrel is part of the overall frame. The rounds go in a revolving cylinder, obviously, which is an integral part of the firearm itself. So there aren't too many parts that can become a part or that I need to hold accountability for. It's all right here. It's all self-contained, which makes it super simple in terms of carrying, using, and malfunction processes, and we're going to get to that as well. It is not as sexy, I would say, as some of the more modern semi-automatic pistols. Obviously, we have the 1911s or 2011s type guns, and we have all the striker fires on the other side. And those are a lot of fun to shoot, and they're great tools on their own accord. And I compare those to being my Porsche and this being my Honda. Porsches are fun to drive. They go fast. They have all these gadgets on them, but they're a lot more likely to have things go wrong versus my Honda. May not be as sexy to drive, but every time you turn that engine on, it will come on. Likewise, every time I pull the trigger, I know this is going to fire. There is very little that can go wrong mechanically in a revolver. It is simple to use, right? It's simple for me to load. Just open the cylinder, load the rounds, close the cylinder. We are good to go. There is nothing else. I want to get into a shooting, whether getting into a shooting sounds a little off. If I want to shoot someone or something, being a target or self-defense, all I have to do is point it in that direction and pull the trigger. That is it. If it doesn't work, okay, let's say I have some sort of a malfunction, typically it's going to be ammunition related, I'm just going to pull the trigger again, which will rotate the cylinder and line up the next round. So there is no true malfunction clearing process that's associated with a revolver, which makes it a lot easy. Think about that. 2 a.m. you hear a bang in your house, you wake up in the middle of a phenomenal dream, and you need to defend yourself. This is a lot simpler for me to use than any semi-automatic pistol out there. With that said, there are some disadvantages, right? Nothing is perfect, and there is always a trade-off. Trade-off number one that is typically mentioned is this is limited in the amount of rounds. They are typically ranged between 5 and 8 rounds, okay, most typically being 6, depending on the size and the caliber. You will see some, specifically with the lower calibers like the 22 caliber pistols and revolvers, they may be taking more rounds, but for the most part I'm going to be limited to about 6 rounds. The other thing is this is hefty. It is heavy. This is the Colt Python. It's the newer generation, and it's a pretty heavy gun. There are ways around it. All right, so give you some example. Okay, this is the airframe light. It is chamber in 38. Okay, but it is significantly lighter just because of the aluminum construction of it, so it is not as heavy. The other one is Taurus and Ruger both make polymer based frames, which also significantly lighten the weight of the overall revolver. Another issue that people often bring up is the load, right? The revolver usually will fire a higher load, a higher caliber per se. 357 Magnum being probably the most common, but going into 44s and 454 Casuals if you want to go real extreme. So they're worried about it. That's a lot of recoil to manage, a lot of force behind every round I fire, and some people may not be able to handle it as well. So just so you know, first of all, I can certainly get a revolver in most common pistol semi-automatic calibers like 9mm and so forth, so you can certainly get it in a smaller caliber if you want to. 357 Magnum revolvers can also fire 38 special, which is a smaller round, a smaller load, and therefore if I cannot manage a 357 Magnum, I can certainly fire 38 special through the same revolver. I know personally 357 is expensive, so when I go to the range, I'll train mainly with 38s, and then I'll maintain 357 Magnums in the actual pistol for self-defense. The trigger pull is heavy, right? So this is a double action revolver, which makes it pretty heavy and hefty pull. So it makes it not ideal for people with weaker grips, some of the elderly population and so forth. We can overcome that by firing this in a single action mode. So if you look at the trigger right now, it's pretty much in the middle. If I pull the hammer back, trigger is all the way at the back, which makes it a very light touch to really make it go off. So I can overcome it. It does add a step to the process every time I want to firing in the single action mode. Pull the hammer back, pull the trigger, pull the hammer back, pull the trigger, which may make it more cumbersome for some. Keep in mind that the smaller the frame, the more felt recoil you're probably going to get. The nice thing about this specific revolver being as big and as heavy as it is when I fire a 357 Magnum round through it, it actually absorbs a lot of that energy just by pure mass and the room that that energy has to dissipate into. When I'm shooting through a smaller revolver, and this is a 38 special, but this one is a 357 Magnum, right? Firing a 357 Magnum through this revolver will give it a lot less room and a lot less mass for that energy to go to. So I will feel that recoil a little more. As we said, everything has a trade-off. Some other options. This is also by Smith & Wesson. It's called the Lady Smith. It has a smaller grip, which is contoured. I actually like it. I have smaller hands. This is another one of my personal ones. I'm a big fan of this revolver as well. We have the Ruger GP100. It's a cheaper option for those that want a full-size 357 Magnum revolver. It will cost about half of what the Colt Python would. So there's a lot of options on the market. These are just a few. I highly recommend that you go to the range and shoot one, see if you like it. I do think that for a home defense scenario, for people that are not necessarily going to carry it, because again, they are big and heavy and bulky. But if I'm not going to carry it and it's just going to sit on my nightstand or in a safe in my house for worst case scenario, this is certainly a very valid tool. I also know of a lot of law enforcement officers that carry a smaller, lighter, what we call a snub nose revolver as a backup gun, just because, again, when things go bad, you know that this will still fire. If your duty gun or your primary pistol is not working because of a mechanical function or anything else, you can still pull the trigger on a revolver and it will still go bang. So, food for thought. I'm a big fan. If you have any questions about revolvers, brand, models, makes, calibers, anything like that, as always, feel free to hit us on either social media or send us a direct message. I am looking forward to hearing from you. In the meantime, stay safe and watch your six.